Robin just told me she could. Without further ado, we'll get started. Let me just, I clicked on the wrong button. 1 second. Get back here and let me share the PowerPoint. All right. So a couple of the objectives we'll get started here is one, we'll just go through the introductions. I'll introduce myself. Daniel will introduce himself so you guys know who we are for those that don't know us. We'll touch on Honsberger Physio and what they do. We'll talk about how a team approach is the best way to both improve your body and the golf swing, rather than a lot of people just work with just the golf course, just a golf coach. When you get the team approach of someone to look over your actual body as well as the golf swing, we can see much more significant improvements. Then we'll dive into the speed generation aspects. So we're going to touch on how length of swing can increase speed, how using different levers in the golf swing create speed, and ground force. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with exercises and we'll open it up for some Q&A. At any time, please feel free to either raise your hand or jump in and unmute yourself and ask a question. We're fully open here. I know it won't disrupt me. Daniel's the same way. So if you have a question, feel free to either type it in the chat or just unmute your mic and speak up.
Robin will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation as well too. So if you want to just type it in the chat, she'll also monitor it and sort of cut in if there's a good time to sort of ask a question. But also, like Carson said, feel free to unmute yourself at any point and sort of ask. Yeah.
So I'll introduce myself first for those that don't know me. My name is Carson Howe. I'm the managing partner here at the Golf Lab. I do all the club fittings, all the coaching sessions, on course, open range, anything to help with your golf game. I'm your guy. I like to think of it as I'm your guy. Swing Callus certified, TrackMan certified, Foresight certified. We help with the education for Swing Callus, which is ground reaction force plate, as well as gears, and Peak, which is Foresight launch monitors. So there's not a piece of tech out on the market that I don't know about or haven't used before. So if there's something that you want to improve, we've got every way to look at it from every perspective to ensure that you find some success. I was the 2019 PGA of Ontario candidate or Apprentice of the Year, so that was last year. I was made a Swing Callus ambassador last year at the PGA show, and just here to help. I'll let Daniel introduce himself.
I know most people on this call are members of the Golf Lab, so I'll kind of just go over a quick intro of who I am and kind of my approach to how I'm going to work with the body and how that can really complement and work with Carson and what you guys are doing at the Golf Lab or with your golf professional. So I'm a certified athletic therapist, an osteopath, manual practitioner, as well as a Titleist Performance Institute coach. Athletic therapy work to sort of rehabilitate injuries, improve biomechanics, and look at how the body functions and how we can make us move more efficiently, more biomechanically soundly, avoid injury, increase power, increase speed, and how we can make our body do that through some hands-on manual treatment, as well as through some strength and conditioning and exercise. Osteopathic manual practitioner is more of a holistic hands-on practice that looks to reduce pain, injury, looks at lack of mobility, strength deficits. And I find the two work really well together in terms of finding where and why we're not moving the way that we're supposed to, and then improving that through some hands-on manual treatment, some stretches and exercise. I'm also a Titleist Performance Institute coach. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Titleist Performance Institute certification, but 25 of the top 30 golfers in the world actually have a TPI member as part of their team. And we're kind of experts in understanding golf swing mechanics and how that correlates to dysfunctions in the body, whether that's mobility, flexibility, strength. But it really emphasizes the work of incorporating a body professional and a golf professional if we really want to improve our golf game. And we'll touch on that in a little bit. I'm not sure if I can switch slides. Do you mind just?
I got it. Yep.
Just real quickly about myself and my background. So I've been a therapist and strength coach for 4 different college and university varsity athletic programs. I've been a member of the medical and fitness team for the Toronto Blue Jays, Team Canada Baseball. I've also worked in the golf industry for over 15 years in a number of different roles. More recently working with a lot of golfers from juniors and amateurs all the way up to elites and professionals, and working on this body swing connection or improving body mechanics and our mobility in the golf swing. So next, I guess we'll just quickly touch on Honsberger, because I know, like I said, most people are from the golf lab, and we'll just give you a little bit of a background about us. So Honsberger Physio Plus is all about helping you get better, and we want to help take your game to the next level. Whether you're finding it hard to move, live or perform better, work better, we're going to talk a lot about how to perform better today. That personal empowerment is the key to living a healthy life. We have a number of locations. I work out of our Markham and Aurora location. We also have an office in Burlington, Stouffville. We do home visits, as well as a number of corporate setups that we have as well within a number of companies, including Ovenberg Golf Club, the Toronto Cricket Club, Apetex. You can kind of see the list there below, but we're kind of all over the GTA.
Actually, for some of the members that have been with me for a couple of years now, Honsberger is who we actually used to work with. Adam used to come to all of our open range practices and work on you guys on the range. And we'll kind of dive into a program that we're bringing out later on. But just to give a little reminder that we have worked with Honsberger in the past, and that's why we're excited to come back as a partner with them.
Just quickly, some of the treatments that they offer. We offer things from biomechanical evaluation, physiotherapy, massage therapy, athletic therapy, osteopathy, injury recover, MVAs or motor vehicle accidents, concussion, sport performance, which we're going to touch on a lot today. Vision training, which is also some of the new cutting edge stuff that we do that is actually can be pretty beneficial to golfers. Corporate wellness, active aging, fitness and personal training, sports specific stuff, as well as some foot care, bracing, and orthotics. Moving along. So like Carson mentioned, we're going to kind of learn today how to improve your body mechanics and how that can help generate speed and power in the golf swing. Moving. So this is what Carson was kind of talking about before when we look at the team approach, and what we talk about with TPI, and what I really believe when we want to improve a golfer's game is we need to look at this team approach that involves a golf coach and then the body coach. So we need that golf professional and the medical and fitness professional to really truly take advantage of our bodies and what we can do in the golf swing. I always have golfers that say, I want my golf swing to look like Rory or Adam Scott or Tiger Woods. And we even have many golfers that may try to make our swing look like that, meaning we may have golfers that take a video of our swing and take a video of one of these golfers and they transcribe them on top of each other and like, why can't I get into these positions? And the reason is you probably don't have the strength, range of motion, or flexibility to be able to do a lot of these things. And that's where we kind of come in to try to improve these things to allow you to be more efficient, create more power, and be more consistent in the golf swing. Moving along. So what if we don't have the mobility, strength, and stability in our joints and muscles? And again, this is where that team approach comes in. My general philosophy is always that the golf coach should determine what our swing should look like. So at the end of the day, Carson or whoever your golf professional is, they're there to say, this is what I want your swing to look like. That's their area of expertise. That's their specialty. What my job is, or the body coach, is to ensure that you have that strength, range of motion, and flexibility to get into the positions that the golf coach wants us to create that efficient swing, the repeatable swing, the powerful swing, and also to be able to make sure that we can sustain that over 18 holes. So many golfers that I work with say their swing on hole 1 is totally different than their swing on 18. That could be from pain, that could be from muscles tightening up through the round. But how do we address that? How can we do things, whether it's before golf, during golf, after our round, to ensure each swing can be as repeatable as it can be, and to ensure we have the flexibility and strength to be able to do these things?
Yeah, I just want to kind of touch on a little bit more. I think all the Golf Lab members will know this, but this is why we do that TPI body screen during your baseline testing in the first session each year. Just because for me, I'm using it as an assessment of what your body can do, so that when we do create a swing for you, it's something that you can play pain-free in, or we'll try to take away those movements that you do that create the pain or create the fatigue. And then we get you to partner with someone that like Daniel that can help you increase the strength of those muscles that could potentially hurt you because you haven't figured out how to strengthen them yet.
One of the things I emphasize with a lot of my golfers too, is not just things to do before and after the round, but it's even during the round. Very few of us, especially at the amateur level, have the ability to maintain good posture, good alignment, good core strength throughout the round. So a lot of the times I'll have golfers bring something like a little massage ball onto the course with them, things you can put on the ground, you can rub into certain areas, pecs, glutes, hips, that can make sure that, again, we're flexible and loose enough throughout our entire round. We'll touch on some of that kind of as we progress through the presentation. So the general approach that we take to looking at the body is called the joint by joint approach. So I'm going to read the definition and then kind of explain how it works. So the body works in an alternating pattern of stable segments connected by mobile joints. If this pattern is altered, dysfunction and compensation will occur. Dysfunction and compensation are going to lead to a lack of ability to create power and speed in the golf swing. So if we look at our mannequin or the skeleton on the right there, our joints alternate, meaning our foot needs to be stable, our ankle needs to be mobile, our knee needs to be stable, our hip needs to be mobile, and all the way up the chain, all the way down to our hand. If we lose the ability, or one of these joints loses the ability to do the job that it needs to, the whole system falls apart. And now we start using areas of our body that are doing jobs that they're not designed to do. And if we start doing jobs that they're not designed to do, that's going to lead to lack of power, lack of consistency, a non-repeatable golf swing, and eventually pain. We need the joints to do the jobs that they're designed to do. Some of the common breakdowns that we see with a lot of golfers is things like our hips and mid-back becoming very stiff. This is often really correlated to posture. We sit all day, hunched forward in our chairs, our hips and our mid-back get really stiff. Now we have 5 or 6 segments, our knee, our hip, our low back, our mid-back, all become stiff and they're unmobile. Where do we get our mobility from? These are a lot of the golfers where our shoulder is our really only mobile joint. Really easy to start getting those snap hooks because if our hips and spine can't move, what's going to move first? The hands are going to come through quickly. I mean, again, this is a mobility issue. We could take golf lessons until we're blue in the face, but if our spine can't move the way that it's supposed to, we're only going to be so effective with them. The second one that we're going to talk about a little bit down the road is shoulder blade mobility. Shoulder blade stability. Is a lot of people's shoulder blades lose the ability to be stable. Again, very common posturally related. We get into the shrugged, rolled forward shoulder position. If our shoulder blade loses the ability to be stable, we now lose the ability to get full arm range of motion or keep the club on plane as we come into the backswing or into the downswing. The last one we're going to talk about is our foot. Very underutilized and underassessed joint, but our foot needs to be stable. You see lots of people who have flat feet or an inability to maintain a good stable foot. If we don't have stability in our foot, we now lose mobility in our ankle. Our knees, hips, low back are all out of alignment, and we lose that ability to create good ground reaction forces in the golf swing. So to create power and speed in the golf swing, we need our stable joints to be stable and our mobile joints to be mobile. We need stability to create mobility, power, and increase club head speed. And this is where our assessment comes in, where we're going to need to assess the joints, determine which ones aren't functioning the way that they're supposed to. And this is where we prescribe some exercises that are going to improve mobility, stability where it's needed, some hands-on manual treatment. But that's the general approach that we take and I take to working on the body. So.
All right, so the speed generation exercises that we're going to go through is one, I'm going to touch on length. So that's just meaning the longer the swing, the more time the club has to accelerate. Levers, so that's how we store energy and release energy. So that's more kinematic sequence. For those of you that were on a previous webinar, it's where we talked about kinematic sequence. So we're going to touch on one important lever that most people, I'll say, have trouble with loading in. And then lastly is ground reaction force. So that's the first link to the kinetic chain. And that's where you get all your energy transfer from. So I think the last one that we talked about was more about the magnitude. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of ground reaction force. So length of the swing, I like to think about it as just high hands. Being able to create a swing with higher hands at the top of your swing allows you to create a longer swing radius, which allows that club to generate more club head speed on the downswing. So the longer that club has to travel, the longer distance it has to travel, the more time it has to continue to accelerate, to pick up more speed and deliver with more club head speed. I think if you talk about thinking about like physics, the longer the moment arm of something is, like if you think about a wheel, the outside of the wheel has to move faster than the inside of the wheel to cover the same amount of rotations. So if you're thinking about 360 degrees, the longer you make your swing, the higher the hands can get. And I'll show you an example of this later. We can create more club head speed with the current feels or current body that you currently have.
And that's one of the issues we see with a lot of golfers is, are they able to maintain good posture and good shoulder blade stability while raising their arms overhead. So having that great range of motion is only effective if we have the stability to be able to control it. So if we get our arm all the way up overhead, but start shrugging up our shoulder, or our shoulder rolls forward. Now, as we come down to the downswing, our club's going to be off plane because we don't have the stability there. Or if we don't have that core strength as we come into that backswing, if we have to stand up or come out of our posture to get those hands high, again, getting those hands high is only effective if we have the stability to get them into the proper positions at the same time.
So we're going to talk about levers in the golf swing. So levers are used to store and release energy in the golf swing. Most people know of the wrist and talk about leg and creating speed with their wrist and creating leg that way. However, there's more than one spot that you can create leg. So the definition of leg is to fall behind. Now, for all of you that have been on K-Vest or gears in here, you know we've talked about kinematic sequence, and you can see all the different ways that you can load, whether it's pelvis to torso, torso to lead arm, and then wrist to club. Today, we're going to talk about the one that typically, I'll say most amateurs have troubles with, and that's loading into the shoulder joint. And what we want to talk about is how to load into the shoulder joint to make an efficient transfer of energy from your torso to your lead arm, because that's where we see the most energy loss from amateur golfers. And it's probably the least discussed levers in golf. And it's starting to gain some popularity, and I know we're bringing it to the forefront with a lot of our golfers. What a lot of golfers don't realize is that a tour golfer, when they go from address, and if you take this measurement between your shoulders and lead arm, and the lead shoulder adduction, which means how much their arm goes across their chest, most amateurs actually move about 45 to 55 degrees. A tour player from setup all the way to the top only moves between 10 and 15 degrees. So, and that's just going to the top of their backswing. So that's because they are able to rotate their body and keep their shoulder separate or lead arm separate from their chest. And then that gives them the space to load into that shoulder joint on the downswing.
So that's one of the things, again, like we see a lot with golfers is, you can move on to the next slide there, but to be able to keep that good 90-degree shoulder angle and keep the arms in that leg position, just like before, again, shoulder blade stability becomes hugely important. If we don't have that shoulder blade stability, we're never going to get there. We were just talking about that kinematic sequence. So if we don't have the ability to dissociate movement of our pelvis, or as I start my downswing, I'm not able to dissociate and get my pelvis moving without my arms, I'm going to start that movement with the arms instead of my pelvis. And then I'm breaking that plane or breaking that angle really quickly. Same idea with the lack of spinal rotation. So if those two segments, our pelvis and our spine, if they're not able to move the way that they're supposed to, that lever is going to break earlier than it's supposed to, and we're breaking that kinematic sequence, and we're not getting the leg that we're designed to or that we're supposed to in the golf swing.
So quick question for you, Carson.
Yep.
Lead shoulder adduction the same as lead arm adduction?
Technically, no. So yes and no. So we kind of use them interchangeably. So lead arm. So I like to speak in the lead arm because most people can understand where their arm is in front of them. Lead shoulder adduction is just a measurement between your upper arm and your shoulders. So that angle is what we care about. I hope that answered that question. Moving along. So we're going to talk a little bit about ground forces in the golf swing. So ground force is the first link of the kinetic chain. So kinetics is force, kinematics is movement. So previous segment, we're talking about the movements of the golf swing. Now we're talking about the forces that create the movements. So what a lot of people don't understand is when you push into the ground, there's a opposite force pushing back against you. So we're looking at how you use the ground to generate more force to create the kinematics for your golf swing. So I think the last session that we had, we were talking about creating more force, so creating more magnitude. In this one, we're just going to talk a general idea of how to use ground force or how to even create the right movement rather than the magnitude of it. And it's really important because when you're creating a powerful and effective ground force, it actually creates the right movements for your swing as well. So we have a lot of early extenders in the golf swing, where early extension, for those of you who don't know, means that at impact, your pelvis tends to get closer to the ball, right? We've been able to fix a lot of golfers, or I'll say make it better, improve golfers, just by teaching them how to create more torque. So torque is the rotational or shearing force in the ground. So learning how to push away from the golf ball helps you actually create more rotation, open up your hips, and actually stay in posture. So ground force is just a different perspective of how to change the movements of the golf swing.
So when I look at ground force, there's a couple of joints that I look at in a lot of detail when it looks to if we're able to do this effectively. And like we talked about before, is the first one is the foot. So many people out there have flat feet. And if we have that ability to maintain a good arch support in our foot, we've lost the stability in our foot. If the stability in our foot's out, that's now going to affect our hips. It's going to affect our knees, our pelvis, our spine. And when these all come out of position, we're never going to be able to transmit force properly from the ground up into the rest of the swing and through that kinetic chain. Moving on to the next slide is after those ground forces leave the foot, they need to go up through the knees and into the hips. And squatting or hip hinging is something that I watch people do every day, and probably 85 to 95% of people do it incorrectly. We hinge at our knees, we hinge at our back, we get too much anterior tilt with our pelvis, which can we'll talk about with early extension, which Carson was mentioning before. But if we're not able to hinge our hips properly, use our glutes, use our core, and hinge through this joint, use those big muscles to create force, we're now using smaller muscles that, again, we're not going to create as much power, create as much ground force, and we're making ourselves more susceptible to injury as we go through these motions.
So we're going to dive into the golf fields and exercises now. I was messing around today because I know I've talked about all these different things with a bunch of students before, but I wanted to see what these types of movements would actually do for my golf swing. Because I know that I typically have a nice short backswing and I feel like I can stay in more control. So I just wanted to see, well, how much more club head speed can I actually generate just by doing stuff like high hands? Right, so I actually have swing callus, and with swing callus, I can actually measure how much higher I got my hands without using gears. And just by having that feel of turning and lifting my hands higher, I actually got my hands about 6 inches higher in my golf swing. And that actually equated into 5 more miles of club head speed, and that's with a 7-iron. So with a driver, that's actually exponentially more. And it actually equated into 18 yards more of carry. So I don't know if 18 yards is a big gain for a lot of people. For me, it definitely is with the same club. But there's a lot of benefits that you can gain just by learning how to move faster. You don't necessarily always have to incorporate everything into your golf swing. But if you can incorporate, I'll say, one of these 3 things, you'll find a big benefit to what we start to do in your golf swings to actually create more speed. So I definitely encourage you all to try these moves with your golf coach or me once you're able to hit balls, and then see what works best for you. You don't necessarily have to do all 3 all at once. Just pick one, see if it works. If it works for you, great. Like I know that when I lift my hands higher, I can create more club head speed. I haven't done it in a long time, so I did it today to see what would happen. And 5 more miles is pretty significant. So I might just go back to high hands and hit it as far as I can, and we'll find the ball some other day.
I think that's one of the benefits too of working in a place like the Golf Lab for those who haven't been there before is the amount of technology that Carson has at his fingertips and really being able to provide that data for you to show you what's actually working.
Yeah, thanks for that, Robin. Like, I think that's the big benefit being here at the Golf Lab is we have access to so many different types of technology. So we have multiple ways to measure the same thing. So in this instance, I use swing callus because it's a great visual on video. I have the ground forces there. I get launch monitor data, so I can show it in this way. I can put our students to gears, which all of our students that are on this call have been in gears before, and you've all seen what we can do in gears, where you can get every type of view. We can look at all your bones and muscles and see exactly what things you're doing. But it's great to have all this tech in one spot because we can measure in multiple different ways, and we can actually quantify if we actually made a difference. I know I've tried this high hand feel with golfers before, and then we measured it and like, okay, that didn't even change a thing, All right, so being able to quantify what moves work for you and for your body is a great way to make sure that you're actually doing things that help you.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get into the exercises. Do we want to go over them first, or do you want to show them first?
I was gonna go over them kind of one at a time. Do you want to start? You
Okay.
said you had a couple that you wanted to demo.
Yeah, okay, so let's start. So I'm going to start with, hang on, stop sharing this for a second. And I'm going to start with just how I want to execute an arm lift for golf swing for when you go to practice. So let me turn this around.
I'm gonna move myself too. There's a little bit more room here.
So we're back in the lab, and I would turn that. Okay, so everyone can see me and still hear me. So when I work for the high hands, the one thing we're going to talk about is I think the biggest misconception that a lot of golfers have is when you stand still and you ask someone to rotate, typically their shoulders don't move and their arms do. So this arm in here gets tight and short, and then your arm is against your chest, and it's really hard to lift your arms from there. So a big part of this is being able to raise your hands in front of you, up and down. So a lot of people have a huge range of motion that they don't know about, and they can actually get their hands significantly higher in their golf swing, but they just weren't in a position before to actually be able to do that. So for this drill, we're going to do something called a chunking drill, where you're going to break into pieces. So the first thing you're going to do is take your setup. You're going to lift your club, then you're going to lift your hands as high as you can go. You can go as high as you want, but just go like where it's overhead, and then you're going to try to turn your body to the top. From there, you can start your downswing. So you're going to go up, raise, turn, and swing. It's funny that just by raising the arms and turning your shoulders, you've now found the top of your golf swing. And you'll start to notice your hands are actually in front of your chest, not in behind you, where you get a lot of I'll say the chicken wing that a lot of people tend to see. Once you're able to execute that, I would build up to where you rotate, where your arms parallel to the ground, and then try to focus on raising the hands higher. So it's going to be more like a golf swing, where it's a turn and lift, and then you can start your downswing. Those two simple drills will actually help you raise the hands for your golf swing to create a bigger swing radius. Over to you, Daniel.
From a more exercise specific thing, what we talk about when we're trying to create length is getting good shoulder blade stability and then getting good core stability. So the first one that we talked about, and one of the main muscles that really restricts that ability to get the arms high, is our lats. Our lats kind of run, they actually start from the front of our arm, come underneath into that big bulky muscle under our armpit, and they attach actually all the way down into our pelvis. So it's going to restrict, one, the ability to get our arms up, but also as we bring the arms up, if they're tight, it's going to pull us up at a posture into that early extension position. Using a foam roller, little massage ball. I like to use the massage ball up against the wall, where we get right into that lat, and it's tough to see from that angle, but I'm rolling that ball through that lat muscle underneath my arm. We need to get that one loosened to be able to, again, get those arms high and avoid us from having to stand upright. Second one that I have a lot of people work on is shoulder external.
Sorry, do you do that on both lats or just your backswing lat?
Sorry, both lats, usually about 30, 40 seconds. It's more, I mean, we really do need it for both. We want that back one to be able to get that arm up, but also for the front arm is if this lat is tight, it's going to limit my ability to come across my body. It can actually limit some of our rotation as well too. So we absolutely want to work on both lats during that exercise. Two other exercises we'll talk about real quick. Wall angels, really great and effective exercise to teach the arms to start getting overhead while maintaining scapular or shoulder blade retraction. A position I see a lot of golfers in, or people in general, is this rolled forward shoulder position. Not an effective way to do anything in life, especially swing a golf club. So getting up against the wall, sitting in a bit of a squat position, arms come up on the wall. We always want to make sure our head, wrist, shoulder, elbow, and low back always maintain on the wall. I'm just going to slide the arms down and up until I lose a point of contact. So coming down until my wrist, my elbow, my head, or my low back really starts to arch. And when I come into one of those positions, I start moving in the other direction. We only want to move in the ranges that we're comfortable in for now. And those are going to start getting better as we continue through the exercise.
That exercise I was going to say that exercise might look easy, but it's actually one of the hardest ones.
Very, very challenging. Last one, again, good for both sides, is shoulder external rotations. Whenever we're doing these rotations, I always tell people, get into good neutral posture first. We never want to be doing the exercises in that rolled forward shoulder position. Shoulders back, getting into our golf posture. So again, if we're doing golf exercises, I like to try to reinforce golf posture with the arm up, golf posture, rotating up, down, up, down. And again, very similar to the position we want to be at the top of our backswing. If I can only get my arm to here and not all the way back, again, I'm losing range of motion and I'm losing the ability to get those high hands in the back of the backswing. Carson?
Love it. Perfect. Moving on to the lead shoulder adduction. So that's the ability to turn and maintain this 90-degree range. We're going to start off, we're going to break this down. One, we're going to start without a club. Then we'll put our club in our hand. And then lastly, I'm going to show you one more exercise to do it without a club as well. So we're going to start with the club down on the ground. We're just going to have our arm straight out in front of us, 90 degrees. And for a lot of golfers, we're going to start off and just learning how to turn and get that arm pointing straight back down the target line. So a lot of golfers, when they start to rotate, they pull that arm across and then it starts to point directly back to the back corner. So we want to learn how to turn and keep your shoulders turned at 90 degrees, and that arm's actually going 90 degrees as well. From here, we're going to try to turn into our lead shoulder and keep this arm straight back. So right now, I'm just learning how to work my shoulder. So I'm not worried about golf posture just yet. Just learning how to turn the body into your shoulder joint so you can work on that lead shoulder adduction so it creates smaller on the downswing. Once you figure out how to do that, we're going to go into golf posture. Again, we'll start with one hand. I'm going to rotate to the top where it's just arm parallel to the ground. That's more than enough. With the arm straight back, but now I'm in golf posture. And now when I start the downswing, again, I want to keep that arm level and still pointing down to the ground, or sorry, straight back before I start to turn my body and then letting the arm swing through. Once you've been able to master that, we'll put a golf club in your hand. So I just went out of focus there. Let me just walk in. There we go. And we're going to do the same thing with the golf club in hand. So this is where it gets a little more tough. As we start the club back, again, we just want, arm pointing straight back. All I worry about is arm parallel to the ground for now. And when I get to the top of my swing here, again, I'm just going to try to turn into my arm where that arm doesn't go forward. So a lot of golfers tend to get arm across the body. And when you start to turn, that arm goes over the top, and that's where you get all the slicers. So everyone out there that has a big slice and has that big out to in club path, that's probably where it's coming from. I'd say 95% of golfers that slice the ball is because this lead shoulder is stable to their chest. So when they turn, guess where the club is? It's way outside. It's going to come over the top, and you're going to slice the crap out of that ball. So we want to get that arm straight back off our chest. And then as you start to rotate down, now we let that arm rest against our chest before letting the arms go through. And the very last one, I'm just going to move my camera. All we need is something that's about shoulder height. So I'm going to use this desk here. And all you're going to do is put your hands on a desk just like this. And I'm going to stand perpendicular to whatever object I have. So if that's my target line, I'm going to stand with this down my side. I'm just going to rotate, put my hands on this, and then I'm just going to try to turn and feel that shoulder being pulled against my chest. So a lot of you will feel like your hands are going to go forward. That means your hands are against your chest. So we want to turn. So when I pick this spot, it's directly straight back. So I've got 90 degrees between my shoulder and my arm. And when I turn into it, now I can feel that resistance in my shoulder before letting it go.
That's great.
Over to you, Dan.
Yeah. So building off that a little bit, and we're totally on the same page in terms of what we need to do to, again, keep that arm as the lever, is make sure that we can get the two segments that are supposed to move before the arm moving correctly first. And again, first is getting that good pelvic dissociation. So getting the pelvis to initiate the downswing. When I'm standing with my arms across my chest, I should be able to get my pelvis to rotate without my upper body moving. and my upper body moving without my pelvis. If we're not getting that good dissociative movement, like Carson said, we're going to come lead with the arms first, come over the top, and that's where we're going to see a lot of slices. So a good exercise that I give a lot of my golfers to work on to get that good pelvic dissociation is we're going to take, I don't know, 5-6 pound weight. A medicine ball works really well too. I have about a 6-inch step here, so a 6 or 10-inch step. I'm going to put one of my legs up on it, holding the weight down behind me. So I got my left, we're going to do both sides, but for now I got my left leg up. Right leg is going to be down and behind. I want to make sure I keep my upper body facing away, my head down as my upper leg steps up and through. Upper body down, up and through. You can see I'm getting my pelvis rotating while I'm allowing to create that leg of my upper body and arms. Really effective exercise for teaching that pelvic dissociation or having the pelvis be able to initiate the downswing. Again, thinking about 10 to 12 repetitions. Second one, and the second area that we need to have move before our arms is our torso or our thoracic spine. You can do it on a chair. I have a Swiss ball as well. So sitting on the Swiss ball, now when I'm on here, I want to think keeping my knees, pelvis, and hips facing forward. Again, I'm going to use the band for some resistance, holding the arms right in front of me. So see, I'm keeping that nice straight arm position. Pelvis, hips, and knees stay facing forward as I use my upper body to twist. Again, we want to make sure we're keeping that lower body nice and quiet as the upper body's doing the work. Trying to rotate to both sides. Again, 10 to 12 repetitions. We need to encourage, as Carson was mentioning, our pelvis and our thoracic spine. They need to have the mobility and the ability to move first. If we don't have that, the arm's going to come first, and a lot of the time that's going to lead to that over-the-top swing position. Carson?
Love that one. Really like that one. So we're going to get into, I'm going to give you one swing movement for each ground force. So for those of you on the call that are Golf Lab members, you know which force is important to you. So you just key in on the one that I talked about. For those of you who have never gone through dominant leg testing and aren't sure what's your dominant leg, that's where you need to come in and we'll put you through the actual dominant leg test and figure out which force actually matters to you. The one I will say that everyone should do more of is learn how to create more torque. But when it comes to the horizontal and vertical, make sure you pick the right one that's good for your golf swing. So without ado, all you need is a little squishy ball. So I just cut a squishy ball in half. So if you have a tennis ball at home, cut it in half. They do a really good job on creating ground force and learning where your pressure is in your feet. We're going to start off with horizontal force. So horizontal is the side-to-side motion. So for a lot of golfers, we're going to first put this ball down into your back heel. Okay, and I'm going to try not to squish it until the backswing. So I got my weight's fairly balanced. As I go to the top of the swing, I want to feel that right heel digging down into the ground. So as I go up, I want to dig that heel down to the ground where I'm pushing down on the ground. I'm creating some ground force, and I'm trying to use my feet to generate power. From here, I'm going to use that force that I created by pushing down that ball to push laterally. So I'm going to go up and push down, and then to start my downswing, I'm going to feel like I'm pushing off that ball to my left. So up and then down. Really simple. For vertical force, we're going to move this ball to your lead foot or left foot for all you righties out there, and you're going to put it under your forefoot. Now, again, when you squish this ball is really important because that's when we use the right force and using your feet properly. When you go to the top of your swing, we want you to feel a little bit more pressure on this left foot, but I don't want you squishing the ball just yet. I want you to go up to the top and feel like you're over this ball, but you're getting ready to squish it. On the downswing to initiate, that's where I want to see that ball get squished because that's going to help you create that vertical off of that lead foot to jump. So we're going to go up to the top, and then I'm going to jump off that left foot. For a lot of golfers learning vertical, we actually allow you to actually jump. So to do it more effectively, I like this where I go up, and then from here I actually ask my golfers to jump and jump backwards. So I'm going to give you one example: up and jump backwards. It's actually funny that a lot of golfers are like, I can't hit a ball in the air when I'm jumping. However, every single golfer I've ever done this with, and we record you on SwingCat on video, no one has ever been airborne before they hit the ball. They've been close, but never been airborne. And everyone's posture is always unbelievable when they do that jump while hitting a golf ball. I actually have an elite junior that's over in Scotland now, who actually always hit the ball further and straighter when she jumped than when her feet were on the ground. And she's like, okay, we got to figure this out. And eventually she figured out how to actually execute that drill or execute that movement without jumping. But for the longest time, she actually had to jump while she played golf because she hit it so much straighter and further that way than her normal golf swing. And then the last drill is for torque. So torque is being able to twist the play or create rotation. And I think this is where a lot of golfers have trouble. Those that definitely stall with their upper body and have a lot of flipping through the bottom of their swing because you have troubles creating rotation with your feet. So I'm going to get a towel and put it on some hardwood. So hopefully you have hardwood somewhere in your house. Just grab any type of towel, dish towel, golf towel. And we're going to do this in 2 steps. So one, I'll say without a club so you don't break anything at your house. And we're going to start with our hands. Actually, I'll separate them to make this easy. For the backswing, we're going to put left hand forward or lead arm forward, and then your trail arm backwards. And what we're going to do is actually work the opposite of, I'm going to try to do this where my back leg goes forward to try to twist to open up. And then on the downswing, it's going to be the exact opposite of that. So it's like you're running back and forth. So what we're trying to do is teach your feet how to actually move forward and backwards. Whereas a lot of people think that torque is actually your feet working this way against the ground, where it's actually forwards and backwards. So as you learn to work the towel forward and back, like so, you're starting to create the right movements with your feet to actually interact with the ground properly to create rotation. When you get good at that, if you have the space in your house, so don't go breaking anything and your wives or husbands start to blame me for broken dishes and TVs, make sure you have the space to do this. Same thing, take a club, and on the backswing, we want to see this trail foot go forward like that. And on the downswing, this way. I don't know if you've ever seen the video of someone trying to swing a golf club on ice and he bails. Typically, if you've ever seen someone slip on a PGA tour or any tour, it's on the downswing, the back foot's going backwards, right? And that's because they're trying to create the rotation and their foot slips. So if your foot's slipping when you're on grass, it just means you're not applying enough downforce to match your torque. All right.
Like we talked about before, when we're trying to create effective ground force, there's a couple of different joints that we need to take a look at to ensure they're working properly. First is the foot and ankle. Like we talked about before, a lot of people have flat feet, and that we may need to look at doing an orthotic or some sort of support to help you get that arch support that you need. The strength and exercise and stuff that we can talk about, but a lot of times we put people into an orthotic or some sort of arch support. Next one we're going to work on, or we're going to talk about, is how to increase our ankle dorsiflexion, or the ability to bring our ankle upwards. Very important range of motion that we need to do to create effective ground force and transferal of force through the golf swing. This is called a tiger tail. You can use like something you use to roll bread at home. I'm not sure who rolls bread anymore, maybe, but you can find them pretty cheap at the dollar store. Getting into a kneeling, I'm going to bring my table over here, up into a kneeling position, taking the roller. We're going to go through the calf, down into our Achilles tendon, rolling through 30 seconds, 45 seconds, till we feel nice and loose. If you find tender areas, you can kind of hang out and roll over those areas. After we've rolled through it, we're then going to take that lead knee and we're going to come forward, getting that good deep calf Achilles stretch. As we bring that knee forward, we want to make sure our knee is tracking right over our toes, not caving in, caving out, are coming right over the top, and we're going to get that good deep calf or Achilles stretch. Again, very important to get good dorsiflexion and create good ground force through our kinetic chain. The next part when we're talking about ground forces and ensure that we're transferring them properly up the swing is proper hip hinge. The two exercises I teach to almost everybody when we talk about hip hinging. The first one's a glute bridge. And again, glute bridge and squats are two exercises that I watch almost every golfer, patient, anybody that I see come through, and 90% of people do them incorrectly or they're using the wrong muscles while they're doing them. It's always one thing to do exercises, but if we're doing them incorrectly or using the wrong muscles to do them, we're just training a bad pattern in our body that we need to get rid of. So with the bridge, I'm going to lie, just bring my table up here so you can see a bit better. Lying on my back. First thing I always want to do when I'm doing that bridge is we want to be able to tilt our pelvis. So if you see me doing it in standing, I can tilt my pelvis to flatten my back, arch my back, flatten, arch. Most people have too much of this anterior pelvic tilt that puts us here. We want to think about tilting it backwards with the attempt of flattening our low back. So that's the first motion we need to do during the bridge. As we're in this position is we have to tilt that pelvis to flatten the low back. Once that low back is flattened, we're then going to squeeze the glute muscles. When the glutes are tight and the back is flat, we're going to lift up, holding for about 5 seconds, dropping down. Then we're going to repeat that motion. Tilt the pelvis, squeeze the glutes, lift up. A lot of people, when they're doing this exercise, are going to start feeling it in their hamstrings or they're going to feel it in their low back. A lot of times when people are doing this exercise and I have them lift up, I have them put their hands on their paraspinal muscles and their low back. If those are turning on, we're doing the exercise wrong. And I would say about 90% of the people I have do this exercise, their low back muscles are the first thing that are going to turn on. Meaning we're doing this incorrectly and we're hinging or we're using the wrong joints to do a motion. Like I said, it's only if we're going to do an exercise, we should do it correctly to make sure we're training that proper body pattern. Last one we're going to talk about is a dowel squat. Again, like I mentioned before, so many people that I watch do squats incorrectly. A dowel, a golf club works really well. When we're squatting, I'll do it the other way. If I'm hinging my hips properly, this dowel should be able to touch the back of my head and it should be able to touch my pelvis. So as I'm coming down into my squat position, I shouldn't lose contact between those two areas. If I'm coming too far forward with my back, it's going to lose contact at my head. If I start hinging at my knees, hinging at the wrong areas, we're going to lose those points of contact. We want to make sure the knees are never coming in front of the toes and I'm hinging here, not at the back. Again, a motion that most of us do incorrectly and needs to be taught how to do correctly to transfer forces effectively from the ground through the foot, up through that chain, and then eventually out into the golf club. Bring everybody back over here.
Let me share the PowerPoint again. So here's your summary of all your exercises here. So for anyone that wants to see these exercises again, we'll share the video with you guys because I know that was a lot in a short amount of time. So all the Golf Lab members, just keep an eye out on their Coach Now space. I'll throw that up in the Coach Now so you can go over the video at any time. And then Robin and Daniel will be able to share that with all the Honsberger Physio clients as well. Not working. There we go. So a little summary of everything. So in summary, the most effective way to improve your golf swing and to increase speed is a team approach. This way you can kind of tackle everything from both sides, both from the golf swing as well as your actual body mechanics. Being able to determine what's limiting you to make you a more efficient golfer, and then creating a plan both for stretches and exercises and treatment, as well as swing drills and instruction, just gives you the full perspective. That's kind of how we believe here at the Golf Lab is when we do anything here, it's like we're gonna tackle everything in 5 different ways, right? Whether it's ground reaction force, 3D, launch monitor, and we believe this is the way you should work on your golf swing as well. It's not just about the golf swing. You also got to look at it from the perspective of your body. Right? I think most golfers tend to have a very narrow-sighted view of how to get better in golf, and they just go and practice on the range and they're range warriors, and you don't see the progression that as quickly as a lot of other golfers that have a plan in place to actually get better and improve quicker. Our next point is that speed can be generated from simple swing changes. Raising the arms really is not a hard thing to do, but figuring out which one is the right motion for you, that's where I think you should all talk to your coach or talk to someone like Daniel who knows your body to know that what are you capable of doing, and then see how it incorporates into your golf swing. And the last point is your body has to be able to function properly to achieve the best results. Unfortunately, I'm definitely not the body expert here, which is why we have partners like Daniel at Honsberger, because they're the ones that are able to work and give you the proper exercises or assessments to actually get you the results that you want for your body to execute the moves that you want. I know I've had a lot of students in the past that want to look a certain way, and I blatantly have told them, unfortunately, you'll never be able to do that with your current body, I'll say composition. I don't think that's the right word, but physical abilities. Sorry, that's the word. So having someone like Daniel that can help you improve your range of motion and muscle strength so that you can do the things that you want to achieve will help you get the best results as fast as you can instead of all the workarounds that we help you with.
That's one of the things that I always tell golfers too, is there's lots of different ways to have an efficient golf swing. You look at somebody like a Rory and Adam Scott, or somebody like Matt Wolf, very different golf swings. Some of that's going to be determined by their coach and what their coach wants them to do. Some of that's going to be by what their physical restrictions are, what their body's physically capable of doing. John Rahm, for example, he had a club foot when he was a child. So he does all sorts of work with a golf coach and a therapist to be able to know how to transfer his weight properly. Because again, he just doesn't have the range of motion in his foot that a normal person would. So when we look at your swing, we need to determine, hey, what are you capable of doing? Have your coach say, yeah, this is the way we want your swing to look. And then make sure that you have the range of motion, flexibility, and strength to be able to repeat that and make it a consistent thing for every round of golf, as well as your first shot, your 50th shot, and hopefully not too many more than 100. So.
Now, quick, do you guys want to open it up to questions, or do you have a few more things that you wanted to review before we close off for the night?
I guess just the last thing that we wanted to touch on real quick is if you are looking, obviously you know where to find Carson. If you're looking to find me to do any work with the body, I mean, I work out of the Honsberger at Markham or Aurora, but actually starting on April 8th, the first Thursday in April, Carson and I are actually going to launch a joint program. It's going to be an 8-week program that will be out of the golf lab, where we're going to come in, we'll do a full body assessment. We're going to look at your numbers that Carson has taken through all of the technology there. And we're going to do a body assessment. We're going to look at your golf assessment, and then we're going to create a very tailored program that's going to run over 8 weeks. On each of those sessions, you'll come in, you'll see myself first, where we'll do some hands-on work. We're going to create you a very specific exercise program for you to work on. And then you're going to go and do your lesson. And it's going to be really interesting to see, because we have all that technology and all the metrics that we're going to be able to look at is how, when you're loose, when you're mobile, when your body's moving the way that it's supposed to, how much more efficient is your golf swing and how much more efficient is your lesson going to be. And then we need to make sure that you can then translate what we do to you in the clinic. And over those 8 weeks and you working on the stretches and exercises, we're hoping to make some real permanent change to your body. So you can then take those stuff that you've learned and take it onto the course for this year and future years of golf.
Awesome. And for those of you who have registered, those details will also be sent as a follow-up and how to register for that program with Carson and Dan. So we'll follow up with that information. Now, I know we have some great questions. So first one is for Carson. Carson, you mentioned in the beginning that a pro player only moves the lead arm 20 to 30 degrees, while an amateur 45 degrees in the upswing. Can you show the difference to understand what it looks like?
Yeah, so actually the range of a pro golfer is actually 10 to 15, and an amateur is about 45 to 55. So what that means is if I were to, actually, I'll turn this around so I can put a golf club in my hand. So when we quantify the lead shoulder adduction, that is how much your lead arm, so if I go into a golf posture like this, that's how much your lead arm is coming across your body this way. So when a lot of people start to rotate, instead of turning the shoulders, their arm starts to move. So a pro golfer only moves about 10 to 15, which is like about that much, whereas the amateur goes 45 to 55. Now, as I get into posture and if I go face on, you can see how much closer my lead arm is to my chest when I'm at 45 to 55 degrees. So which means when I get to the top, because I'm already tight here, as soon as I turn, and I'll change my view. So I go up here, I'll bring it across, I'll turn. Now when I start to unwind or start to downswing, because my arm is already stable to my chest, that arm has to go outside over the top. Whereas a golf pro, as they go up to the top, because they're able to keep this almost 90-degree motion with their lead arm, when they start to transition and start to downswing, now I have the space to let my hands fall down and under the plane to deliver the club from the inside, and which is a more effective use of your body in terms of biomechanics and speed generation.
Awesome. I think that really, the visual really helped show us the key difference of what you were talking about there. Now, this question's for Dan. Dan, what is your view on percussive therapy devices, for example, the Theragun? If you sort of support these, what body parts or areas of focus for golfers, and when do you suggest using those tools?
So I'm absolutely a fan of those percussive tools, the massage gun, whatever it is, foam roller, massage ball, massage gun. They're all working to accomplish the same goal. Where you want to use it is going to be really dependent on the person. It's tough to really give like a specific answer as to where to use it. Most golfers are going to have tightness through their lats, tightness through their hip flexors. But I can't say that's going to be the same for everybody. So that would be a good place to start. One thing that I always tell people when they're using any type of loosening tool, whether that's a massage gun, a foam roller, massage ball, whatever it is we need to do some sort of strengthening to maintain that hold. The reason a muscle gets tight is because something else isn't doing its job. So if we just continue to stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch, but don't strengthen, that muscle is just going to keep overworking. Hip flexor and glute is a great example. The reason our hip flexor has to work so hard is because our glute's not strong enough to do its job. So if I stretch my hip flexor but don't strengthen my glute, there's nothing to stop that hip flexor from having to continuously overwork, and you're just going to have to keep stretching and stretching. So I'm absolutely a fan of using the massage guns or whatever the brand name is of the one that you have. And hip flexor and lats to be a good place to start. But again, it's going to be really different based on each individual person. And the most important thing is make sure that you're doing a strengthening program to go along with it, or you're just treating a symptom versus fixing the cause.
Awesome. That's a great explanation. And when in doubt, always ask a medical professional. And that's exactly what Dan is here for. Carson, I do have one more question for you.
Yep.
This one is from Mark. The high hands drill, although rear leg is the straighter leg, what are your thoughts on front heel off the ground for a bigger turn? I hope I articulated that properly.
Yeah, so actually, you know, it's funny that he says that. I'll say I'm impartial to lead heel off the ground. I would say it depends on the golfer. I have no issue with a golfer lifting the lead heel off the ground to create a bigger turn. And like, I work with a lot of long drive golfers as well. So when we work with long drive golfers, we try to add almost everything possible to get a longer golf swing and generate more speed. Being able to lift that lead heel allows an extra bit of rotation in the body to get to the top and create a longer golf swing with the extra rotation before placing it back down and starting that kinematic chain. I use the heel lift for many reasons. One, for a lot of people, it helps initiate the lower body. right? Because a lot of golfers that go to the top and have their feet flat have issues starting the lower body. So having that heel up off the ground actually gives them a cue to, okay, yeah, before I start the downswing, I got to put that foot back down. And when you do that, you can see how I can start that lower body action. So I use it for multiple reasons. One being lower body initiation for a kinematic sequence. The other is for range of motion. So I would say it depends on the golfer and what I use it for. Definitely 100% okay with people lifting their left heel. That's for sure. I definitely wouldn't advise against it unless there's something going on where typically a lot of people that do it, I see a lot of this where that knee kicks in, which I don't want to see. I typically like to see, because I want that knee to be a stable joint. I want that knee working forward and backwards, not in, because that means you're going to have to figure out how to stabilize it. So typically a lot of golfers will waste energy sliding back, and typically the timing isn't there. So that's where you start to see a lot of inconsistencies in the golfer, where if you can go up onto your lead heel, but still have your knee moving forward over the foot joint, you can stay stable and still create a lot of power.
And I think that's a lot where this joint program with Carson and I can come in, is when we're trying to find out what the most efficient swing for the golfer is again, the coach at the end of the day has to be the one to be like, yes, we want to create the most power, the most torque, the most rotation. But then it's like, okay, well, what is this person's body capable of? And that's where we kind of work into that team approach, where when we're looking to make what the most efficient swing for you is we need to look at both approaches. And is the lead heel, again, the most efficient for your body? Like I said, and that's where that team approach comes in to say, how can we make you more stable while you're doing that? So again, I think that's where this program could really come in to try to find the most efficient swing for each individual golfer by looking at both aspects.
And last question here. I guess it's sort of a continuation. So high hands also due to the straight leg. So high hands equals a straighter rear leg. Is that
I'd say not necessarily. So the straighter rear leg is more for the body rotation, right? So if you think about being able to rotate the body, your feet work in opposites. So if my left knee is bending, I want that right knee straightening just to help that create rotation. So as you see, as I work both ways, if one is straightening and one's bending, I create rotation in the hips, right? So I don't mind if you're limited to turning and you want to keep that leg a little bit more bent because you have knee issues, that's fine. Because I don't like people with a locked out knee, right? I never want to see a locked knee at the top of your swing, but I'll say, yeah, straighter is okay, right? That's more for the rotation. The higher hand, you can still rotate and lift your hands without the legs moving anymore. So I can still go higher here without straightening my leg more. The leg rotation is more of a rotational aspect for the golf swing rather than getting the hands higher.
Awesome. And then the last question before we let everybody go tonight, because I know we are just after 8 o'clock. But how can we create speed with maintaining control of the ball?
I can start with that one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That might come to that joint by joint approach that we talked at the beginning. Is increasing our speed and our range of motion is only effective if we have the stability in the joints that need to be stable. So we need to make sure that all of our joints are working properly. If the joints that are supposed to be mobile are doing their mobility while the joints are supposed to be stable are maintaining stability, then we can create power while maintaining control of the ball. The problem, and what a lot of people I find do, is they create speed by moving the wrong joints or using the wrong joints to do things that they're not designed to do. So I find if we can get all the joints moving the way that they're supposed to be doing, then you go and see Carson and he can show, like, he can now be like, yeah, well, we can generate speed properly. We can follow the right kinematic sequence because your joints are moving the way that they need to be moving.
Yeah, I think I'll add on to that is because you're creating more speed doesn't mean you're going to lose control. I think there's I'll say good ways and bad ways to create more speed. So when you're creating speed, I'll say efficiently with your body movements, you actually don't lose control of the golf club or I'll say the club face. Because typically whenever I work with a golfer and controlling the golf ball, it has to do with your club face and club path, right? So if there's club face and club path issues, typically that's because you're doing something with the hands or the wrists to add speed. Where we're trying to add speed by actually using the big muscles in your body, like raising your arms. So you're using you're using bigger muscles, not the fine motor pattern muscles to create speed. When I talk to a lot of golfers, okay, hit one hard. you see them go up and then all of a sudden they do that where they flip the hands harder because they want to move the club faster. Whereas when you go through it, the motions like this and go, okay, you're going to create speed by raising your hands higher and everything else is going to stay the same. You're not going to lose control of the face because the face control aspects in your hands haven't changed. You're just adding a new aspect to generate more speed or learn how to turn the body a little faster or harder. Again, those are all things that aren't going to worry about the hands and the timing aspects. We're going to take those out, right? I think when you deal with a lot of amateurs that have trouble controlling the golf ball, it's because they have so many timing aspects in their golf swing. So when you start to remove the timing aspects out, you can work on being more efficient with the movements. I think I worked with a golfer today with the same thing. It's like, okay, he got into this big cupping motion because he would fan the club open and he'd have a super cup wrist. So on his way down, he had to flip his hands at impact. Whereas he actually got into what he thought was 50% speed, and we actually got rid of all the wrist motion. He actually started to move the club 3 miles faster and then hit the ball actually another 16 yards further than he did before with only a 3 mile an hour club head speed difference because he was just being more efficient with his movements and getting more with his club delivery. I think there's always like I'll say better ways to do things that are easier. So moving more efficiently sometimes will feel slower, but you're just being more efficient with the energy that you're using so you get more out of your golf swing.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it for this evening. So first off, wanted to send a big thank you to Carson for pulling this together and organizing this with the students from the Golf Lab, as well as big thank you to Dan for really preparing a great presentation tonight. Again, for all of you attendees on the list, you will be getting a copy of this recording and all of the exercises because I know all of you guys are going to start working on those tomorrow, right? All right, everybody. Big thanks again. Hope you have a great evening and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot.